Hello and welcome to the final webinar on the PRA Professional Recognition Award, and this one is focusing on Standard 6. And presenting the session again is me, Karen Pontin, and my colleague Sandra Robson.
Hello there.
Can I say? Yeah, hi Sandra. Okay. So the objective of this mini webinar is to introduce to you what you need to do for the final standard in the Professional Recognition Award at Level 5. So by now, you will have done the other 5 standards: the commitment to professional standards, communication, leadership, professional development, and working with others. And this is the final part of the qualification. Managing customer participation and expectation. That's quite a big ask, I think, by anybody's standards. So these are the things you need to think about before you launch into that. First of all, you need to have completed the other 5 standards and all the tasks, as we've said. You need to have gone through all of those. You would have had the feedback from your assessor after your initial submission of work in May 2018, and you will have read and by now hopefully be in the mode of implementing the feedback you've had from your assessor. So, standard 6. You need to show that you have or could determine a benchmark for customer service based on customer expectations. Of course, that implies you know what the customer's expectations are. Based on operational capacity, you obviously, when you determine a benchmark, have to be sure that you can meet it and that your organisation has the operational capacity to do it, and that's in line with organisational objectives. You need to evaluate the levels of customer satisfaction in your own area of responsibility and implement a strategy to improve customer service in your area. And throughout that, you need to develop and maintain good customer relationships, taking action to resolve complaints, but always in line with your organisation and legislative guidelines. And can I make the point before I go any further that customers is a very broad term, and it covers stakeholders, somebody who may have a service from your team but they do not pay for it. It may be, and don't forget about internal customers. In lots of areas, particularly when you work at level 5, you have very little dealings with external customers, but you will always have dealing with internal customers, whether it be in your own department, in other departments, in suppliers, organizations. The term customer is very broad, so don't immediately think this means somebody from outside your organization who buys a service from you. Okay, it's much broader than that. So the skills and knowledge that you need to demonstrate are that you can evaluate and analyze customer service, in this case, that you can gather data, then set benchmarks or targets for customer service, that you can go on to measure the effectiveness of that and give feedback to the teams involved, or perhaps to your line managers. So again, some of these skills you've already used in analysing and evaluating things in previous standards. So don't forget to consider whether or not there is evidence already in your evidence or your skills and knowledge already in your responses and in your evidence that may meet the requirements for this particular standard. You have to show that you have the skills and knowledge to set targets and planning. Again, this has come up repeatedly during the Professional Recognition Award, but this is specifically planning to achieve levels of customer service. Then you have to clearly communicate those targets. And here we go again with the communication, as Sandra said in webinar related to standard number 5. If you can't communicate, you will struggle, or you can't communicate well and effectively, you will struggle to get the evidence together for this qualification, because it is fundamental to every standard. And you will have to show that you have the skills and knowledge to understand performance measures, because performance measures can be soft or hard, they can be qualitative or quantitative. It depends on what it is you're measuring. And bear in mind, always, the evidence for this standard has to show that you're, excuse me, you have the skills and knowledge in relation to customer service. And finally, again, the problem solving and decision making skills and knowledge, how to sift information, which may be qualitative or quantitative, and it may be feedback directly from customers, or it might be from, from a third party who's collected it for you, or it might be from your team. It might be anecdotal information. It could be a range of things. You have to show that you can sift it, that you can demonstrate resilience in overcoming challenges to customer service. Excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat. That you can effectively use resources to overcome those challenges, and resources can be people, time, equipment, money, any kind of resource that you use to deliver customer service, that you have at your fingertips a number of decision-making techniques, and you choose the one that's most effective, and that you clearly communicate with your team and with others, and possibly with the customers as well. Anything to add to that, Sandra?
No, I don't think so. I was just looking at the linkage actually between this and the previous standard 5.
Yeah, working with others.
One can flow into the other.
Yeah,
just one project.
I think you're right there, because this standard is all about you leading what happens with a customer, but it's leading your team to it. And in fact, you're quite right, standard 5 and 6 are quite closely allied. So that's something to think about when you answer the tasks. Here they are. Excuse me. You need to show that you've developed or analysed a benchmark that is used to measure customer satisfaction. First of all, develop or analyse. You may already have a benchmark in place that measures customer satisfaction. So you need to analyse how it works, how effective has the benchmark been. If there isn't a benchmark in your organisation to measure customer satisfaction, you will need to develop one and implement it. You need to think about, again, how effective it has been. And this is the bit I was telling you about when I went through the standard statements. The term customer may refer to an individual or a group who purchase or receive, sometimes without paying for it, goods, facilities or services. Customers in this sense are anyone who require a service from you and your organisation. It can refer to internal colleagues or people external to the organisation. So it's a very broad sweep of people, but they purchase or receive goods, facilities or services from you and your organisation. So although you may think initially, I don't deal with customers, you can see it's a much broader definition of the term customer than perhaps you would have immediately thought. So using the benchmark, which is already in place or which you've developed and implemented, you need to evaluate the levels of customer service, customer satisfaction rather, within your organisation, and then explain strategies that you've either used or you could use to improve customer service. Then within that, it's almost saying, explain how you've developed and maintained good customer relationships, maybe before you implemented the new benchmark or during your monitoring of it. And then how effective have your actions been in improving customer relations, and you don't get away without dealing with the customer complaints. And again, this may be the complex problem that you've worked with others in standard 5, that you've worked with them to resolve. It just depends on the kinds of customer complaints you may have had to deal with. And complaints can be large or small, can't they? But you do need to act to diffuse them, to resolve them, and to, as a result of them, improve those relationships with your customers. So don't forget key things with this. Your customers, anyone who, it can be internal or external, they may receive this service from you without paying for it. It's that very broad stakeholder type definition of the term customer. You have to either analyse a benchmark that's already in place and then act on implement strategies rather to improve that, or you have to develop a benchmark yourselves, implement it, and then look at strategies to improve the feedback you get. And you need to think about how you've maintained good relationships within that process and how effective you've been in resolving customer complaints. And your evidence for this standard, these tasks, would be the benchmark that you're using, obviously, whether it's in place or being developed, examples of complaints you've had, which could be emails, it could be in meetings, it could be in a survey, it could be in working documents that you know from colleagues in other departments where you've been in discussion about an issue you're trying to overcome. It could be, as always, it could be a range of things depending on your organisation. And don't forget, as always, statements from colleagues who can confirm that what you did met the requirements are always excellent, excellent evidence of what you've done. I mean, if you could get a witness statement from a customer whose complaint you've resolved, then that would be the best thing of all. But sometimes the situation and the relationship is not that you could ask for that. So it doesn't, as you said, as you can see, the evidence doesn't say you have to have a statement from someone who can confirm that what you did met the customer's requirements. But obviously, if you can get a statement confirming it, that's really, really useful. Anything to add, Sandra?
Just on task 6.3, just again, you have said this, but how effective have your actions been in improving customer relationships and resolving customer complaints? I would add to that, how do you know? Because we can all say we've been very effective, but if you can put in there how you know your actions have done what they should have done, you're answering the whole aspect of it, or addressing the whole aspect of it, which is only claim to have done things you can prove.
Yeah, which we've been saying from the beginning, as you say, and that's key. You know, that's something for the pilot to think about, possibly adding how do you know to the end of that task. So yeah, that's a very useful point. Thanks, Sandra, that's great. Okay, once again, the things to remember: describe your experiences, give real life examples. Your responses must be reflective. What would you do differently if you had to deal with the issue again? What went well? What didn't go so well? The standard statements must clearly be met. Write your responses using the term I. It's your responsibility as a candidate to match what you've written with the standards. So constantly look back at them to make sure that what's in each of those statements is met in your responses to the tasks. Only claim things you can prove, which is exactly what Sandra was just saying. Don't forget, you can use the same piece of evidence to support more than one standard by referencing it. And Sandra actually made the point, and she's quite right, that standard 5 and 6 could possibly be very similar, if not the same evidence. So do bear that in mind when you approach the tasks for standard 6. And once again, don't upload huge reports. For example, don't upload an entire project plan unless you can explain to us how it was your benchmark or how it was what you did to meet the customer's requirements. You have to tell us how you've used those documents. And you can always put a link in, but hopefully, preferably, a link to the relevant page. Okay, so having completed the tasks for standard 6, once you've uploaded that and your responses to all the other tasks, you're satisfied you've completed everything, you've uploaded every bit of relevant evidence you can think of, and your declaration form, which was, if you remember, going right back to the introductory webinar, the declaration form is where was the same part of the same task where you had to upload your CV and your job role and so on. Once you've filled that in and uploaded that, click claim. Do not click claim until you're absolutely sure you have nothing to change and nothing to add. Once you click claim, your assessor will automatically be informed the work is awaiting final assessment. But please do think about this, because once you've clicked claim, you can't change anything or add anything to your submission. Your evidence, both the responses to the tasks, your CV and all of that, and the evidence you've uploaded to every task to support the tasks, everything will be locked. Okay, so do not click claim until you are absolutely sure you've done everything, completed everything, and you've uploaded the declaration form. So your assessor will assess your work. If they assess it as being complete, it then goes off for a final quality check. and then you will be informed when everything has been signed off, is the phrase we generally use. Your assessor will leave any relevant feedback notes for you underneath the evidence as the the evidence, as they've done with everything else they've assessed. And if any of the work is incomplete or there are any gaps or you have to do anything else, they'll agree a target date for you to resubmit. So once you're happy you've completed everything, click claim and wait then to hear from your assessor. But do bear in mind, even if you've done everything and your assessor has determined that you've finished, it still has to go for a final quality check. So it may be a little while before you're actually told that you've achieved the qualification and that the badge is yours. Is there anything I need to add to that, Sandra?
I would just remind them, as you said, make sure you have done everything you need to do before you click claim, because you only have one more chance. That's
right. So, and of course you can go back and look at this webinar again, just to remind yourself before you do your final submission. Just come back in and read this again, and once you're happy, click claim, and then you can relax for a bit for the rest of the summer, hopefully. Okay, if you have any questions or answers, questions that you need answering, for example, to Standard 6 or to the final submission process, as always, you can contact members of the team and your assessor by using the central email address, and the person monitoring it will make sure that your assessor gets the messages you've left or the queries you've left. I'd like to thank you once again for listening to and watching this webinar, and I'd like to thank Sandra for helping me out with this and reminding me of things I'm sure I would have forgotten otherwise, and for the technical support we've had from our colleagues in Digital Me. So that's been great. I hope you found them useful, and thank you very much for taking part in the PRA pilot. Do you want to say anything, Sandra?
No, just good luck.
Yes, and well done for getting this far. Cheers.